Namo Amida Butsu. Introduction to Trilogy 1 by Gansen John Welch. I wrote these 3 new poems to thank and honor my teachers, Reverend Josho Adrian Cirlea and Paul Roberts, as well as our Amida Dharma masters, Nagarjuna, Vasubandhu, Tan-Luan, Daochuo, Shandao, Genshin, Honen, and Shinran, without whom I could not have found and understood, in my case to some small extent, Amida Dharma and my utter helplessness trapped in the endless suffering of samsara. Never forget these wise words from Tannisho by Yuienbo. Quote, as I humbly reflect on the past, when the late Master Shinran was alive, and the present in my foolish mind, I cannot but lament the divergences from the true shinjin that he conveyed by speaking to us directly, and I fear there are doubts and confusions in the way followers receive and transmit the teaching. For how is entrance into the single gate of easy practice possible unless we happily come to rely on a true teacher whom conditions bring us to encounter? Let there be not the slightest distortion of the teaching of other power with words of an understanding based on personal views. End quote. My hope is that readers and listeners will find that certain words, phrases, ideas and concepts in these poems resonate with their past and present experience and prove to be helpful and meaningful in increasing their understanding of this profound and precious Amida Dharma. I would encourage readers and listeners to share these PDFs and recordings with family and friends, especially the audio recordings for those who may have difficulties with reading, so that as many people as possible may benefit. I also hope that these verses help others and motivate them to find a good teacher like Reverend Josho Adrian Cirlea, listen deeply to Amida Dharma, and think and say, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu. Thank you, Amida Buddha. Homage to Amida Buddha. I take refuge in Amida Buddha. Namo Amida Butsu, the faithful and constant companion, that is the Nembutsu, by Gansen John Welch. Family and friends cannot go with you at death. Even your body will betray you at your final breath. Amida Dharma is the best and most faithful friend and companion during life, and especially at the end. So be open to Amida's primal vow and other power. Do not delay or wait until your final hour. As soon as possible, or better still, immediately begin to be open to Amida's inconceivable gift of faith or shinjin. How, you may rightly and very sensibly ask, can I accomplish this very important task? Realize that you cannot earn faith in Amida. You can only listen again and again to Amida Dharma until you become open to receiving Amida's grace, and you understand that you must eliminate all trace of trust in self-power and ego. You will then finally and certainly come to know that salvation from birth, death, suffering and samsara caused by our endless evil karma can only come from Amida Buddha. So have faith and trust in Amida, and think and say the Nembutsu always, during all of this life's remaining days. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu. Thank you, Amida Buddha. Homage to Amida Buddha. I take refuge in Amida Buddha. The above verses were inspired by the following passages from the excellent book, The Path of Acceptance, Commentary on Tannisho by Reverend Josho Adrian Cirlea. Quote, faith or shinjin can be awakened in us by Amida Buddha if we listen to his Dharma. By listening to and understanding the content of the teaching with the head, our hearts can become opened and receive faith. Thus, reading, listening, and discussing the sacred texts are extremely important. End quote. Quote, all members of our school whether they are lay or priests, must always look for and accept only the words of our master Shinran Shonen. And we must always be careful, as Yuienbo says in another chapter of Tannisho. One should cautiously fear that one may be going against the late master's intent. So, this is what we are trying to do now, when discussing Tannisho and other classical texts from our tradition. We are trying to understand and follow the exact teaching of our true teacher, Shinran Shonen, so that we may receive the same shinjin like him and attain Buddhahood in the Pure Land. Zoken Sensei said, Shinjin can be obtained through a good teacher's words. How could you obtain shinjin without accepting the words of the founding master? Quote, comments on the first chapter of Tannisho. Salvation of Amida is beyond understanding and has no connection with our merits. The first sentence of this chapter, saved by the inconceivable working of Amida's vow, I shall realize birth in the Pure Land, shows very clearly that the saving, that is birth in the Pure Land, comes from Amida's vow. This is the essence of the teaching we receive from Shinran Shonen. This working, this saving, is inconceivable, which means it cannot be fully understood by our limited minds. We can hear the promise contained in the primal vow and entrust in it, but we cannot understand rationally its work and action, for example in the way we understand any other human action. In connection with this, I remember the words of Shinran Shonen addressed to Yuienbo in letter 9 from Lamp of the Latter Ages, Natosha. It seems to me that with all your attempts to understand by reasoning and by learning, you have fallen into confusion. It is completely in error. Once you have simply come to realize that vow and name surpass conceptual understanding, you should not calculate in this way or that. There must be nothing of your calculation in the act that leads to birth. You just need to entrust in the Tathagata. So, as we see, it is not by accident that Shinran Shonen speaks about the working of the vow as being inconceivable. He repeats this in many parts of his writings, and I think it is because he doesn't want us to become distracted by our own ideas and personal opinions and fall into the error of having a false and intellectual shinjin. Human minds always have the tendency to calculate and try to understand everything by its limited methods, thinking there is nothing that cannot be understood by them. But the working of the vow is beyond human calculations and beyond thinking. Related to the vow, we can only hear it and accept it in faith, nothing else. It is like traveling by boat or plane. We do not have extensive knowledge of sea navigation, ship construction, or flying, and we do not know how exactly the captain or the pilot drives the boat or plane, but we can entrust in them and climb on board. The boat or plane will take us to destination without the need from us to have all the knowledge about them. The moment you entrust yourself thus to the vow, so that the mind set upon saying the Nembutsu arises within you, I think these words show that the moment of entrusting and the moment of Nembutsu are one and the same, that Shinjin, or the entrusting heart, and saying of Amida's name are not separate. The moment you entrust, so that the mind set upon saying Nembutsu, shows very clearly that one who entrusts immediately feels the need to recite Nembutsu. I always like to quote Saichi on this matter. When someone is catching a cold, he cannot abstain not to cough. I caught the cold of a Buddha's Dharma, and I cannot stop coughing the Nembutsu. What is in fact Namo Amida Butsu? Namo means to take refuge, but it also means homage to. Butsu is Buddha. So, Namo Amida Butsu means I take refuge in, homage to Amida Buddha. To recite Namo Amida Butsu is to express entrusting and also to express gratitude to Amida for saving us. So, Shinran says that in the moment you entrust yourself to the vow, and because of this you say the Nembutsu, you are immediately brought to share in the benefit of being grasped by Amida, never to be abandoned. This means that you enter into the stage of those assured of nirvana, or the stage of non-retrogression. What is the stage of non-retrogression? It means the root of your karma is cut. That is, although you continue to experience the results of your own past karma and to act as a being full of illusions and blind passions until the moment of your death, your karma cannot plant further seeds into another life. Because of the merit transference from Amida, you are now assured of nirvana, which you will attain in the moment of your death, when you are born in the Pure Land. You are established in this stage of non-retrogression, not by yourself, but by Amida, being grasped by Amida, who will never abandon you, never to be abandoned. This is what is meant by non-retrogression, or being assured of nirvana. To be brought to share in the benefit of being grasped by Amida, never to be abandoned, or to enter the stage of those assured of nirvana is called salvation in the present, and is of primal importance in Jodo Shinshu. According to Shinran Shonen, salvation by Amida Buddha takes place in the present life when we receive shinjin, or faith. And because of this, in the moment of death, we are born in the Pure Land where we immediately attain the supreme Buddhahood. End quote. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. History by Gansen John Welch. Birds leave no trace as they fly, high up in the vast space of the sky. Human flesh also disappears completely when we inevitably age and die. We do leave skeletal remains with almost indelible traces or stains that, together with every thought, word, and deed, have karmic consequences that need expression in future samsaric states, caused by greed, grasping, folly, ignorance, and hate. History is mainly the record of the follies, crimes, and misfortunes of humans in all times, to paraphrase the great historian Gibbon. But unenlightened humans have not even begun to find a way out of this hellish circumstance, where we repeatedly struggle for bodily sustenance, and death, always lurking in the shadows, seeks out every opportunity that death knows to destroy our ephemeral body and our unstable mind, so fragile, but all too often very unkind. Only Amida, so infinitely compassionate and kind, can help us to seek and to find the best and only way in this dreadfully dark day and age that the lineage masters define as one of profound Dharma decline, out of suffering samsara and into blissful nirvana. Amida's realm of wisdom, compassion, bliss, and peace that will never cease. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Thank you, Amida Buddha. Homage to Amida Buddha. I take refuge in Amida Buddha. The above verses were inspired by the following passages from the excellent book, The Path of Acceptance, Commentary on Tannisho by Reverend Josho Adrian Cirlea. Quote, "We are in delusion, knowing nothing at all of the depths of our karmic evil or the vastness of Amida's benevolence," says Yuienbo in the postscript of Tannisho. Who is ready in this world filled with how great we are kind of visions to see himself or herself in the words of Master Shandao, quoted by Yuienbo? Know yourself to be a foolish being of karmic evil caught in birth and death, ever sinking and ever wandering in transmigration from innumerable kalpas in the past, with never a condition that would lead to emancipation. This is exactly the starting point in Jodo Shinshu, when you realize your failure in reaching spiritual emancipation. If, in other Buddhist methods, you start with acknowledging that every being has Buddha nature and is a potential Buddha, which is true, in Jodo Shinshu you start with the realization that for you it is actually impossible to become a Buddha by yourself. That awareness is strong and definitive, knowing deeply that there is no condition ever for you that will lead you to emancipation. Once you have that strong and profound conviction about yourself, just like an alcoholic recognizes his present situation and accepts help, you no longer need to dwell in thoughts of self-power and personal evolution, but you become ready to receive the hand of Amida Buddha that has been extended to you. Superficial talk about good or evil can be left to those who wish to busy themselves with them. But for you, the helpful hand of Amida is all that matters. I often have the feeling of living in a world I don't really understand, which, if I'm to describe it in only one word, I would choose chaos. My mind is chaotic, and so are the minds of others. For example, I could not understand, no matter how much I tried, why some dear persons have left me, until I finally realized there is nothing to understand. There can be an understanding of why some people do this or that, if they have a clear and unstable mind. But what can one understand from a chaotic mind led by unknown and unstoppable karmic impulses? In chaos you cannot see a clear path with a beginning and an end, with reasons why some actions were done and others were not done. In fact, the majority of people act without knowing why, led by strong impulses like madmen. And you are also crazy if you imagine that you can somehow find an explanation of their deeds. Of course, people give a lot of explanations to their actions, especially when they hurt one another. But my advice that, for example, I often give to those who pass through the suffering of a divorce is to not care about these explanations, just as you would not take seriously the explanations coming from mentally disturbed persons. People instinctively hurt one another because they are mentally ill, and the power of their evil karmic tendencies is so overwhelming that there is no chance to stop them. It is like living in the same house with persons who have been mentally sick from birth. You are crazy if you imagine that you can find some long-lasting peace or warmth or reason in this place. To me, the words of Shinran, in this fleeting world, this burning house, all matters, without exception, are empty and false, totally without truth and sincerity, illustrate best what I wrote above, which are my own personal experiences and thoughts about the world in which I live. I often repeat to myself these words of Shinran in times of great sorrow, when the chaos, misery, and stupidity of this world hits me hard, so that I renew my awareness of the true nature of the place I'm forced to live in, due to my past karma. I sometimes encourage myself with the thought that for a person living in the Amazon jungle it is normal and natural to be bitten by mosquitoes, and it is stupid to wish for things could be otherwise. In the same way, this being the nature of this world, it is normal that I suffer. Living in the middle of so much suffering with various adverse circumstances coming to us every day, driven as we are by unconscious karmic impulses, how can we truly know what is good or bad? How can we truly see with calm eyes how things really are? If one is in the middle of a narrow street with very high buildings on the left and the right, how can he have a general survey of the entire city? He in fact sees only the street he walks on and where he spends his entire life. But without flying above the city with an airplane, he will never have a complete vision of the city. It is the same with the vision of ordinary, unenlightened people and the vision of the Buddhas. The first is limited by ignorance, blind passions, and karmic tendencies, while the latter is free and unrestricted by anything. This is, I think, the meaning of Shinran's words. I know nothing at all of good or evil. Or if I could know thoroughly, as Amida Tathagata knows, that an act was good, then I would know good. If I could know thoroughly, as the Tathagata knows, that an act was evil, then I would know evil. In fact, for a foolish being of blind passions, in this fleeting world, this burning house, all matters without exception are empty and false, totally without truth and sincerity. Nothing can be truly understood by an unenlightened mind, living a life full of suffering, resembling fire, in an impermanent world where he cannot rely on anything stable, be it physical or mental. Only one thing is true and trustworthy here in this unending chaos and nightmare: the helpful hand of Amida, extended to us in the form of the Nembutsu of faith. As Shinran assures us at the end of this true description of life in the world, the Nembutsu alone is true and real. This quote from Shinran helps me to pass through this life with a clear awareness of its true nature and the path I need to follow. I do hope it will have the same effect on you, dear friend. End quote. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. The traumas, Terrors and Tragedies of Samsara by Gansen John Welch. The terror, tumult, and turmoil in our unenlightened minds not just frequently but always foils all our valiant but vain attempts to find wisdom, serenity, compassion, and peace, and the way to make all suffering cease. Truth is at best ignored and completely abandoned, to languish utterly neglected, tragically and totally misunderstood, or twisted and perverted. All too often truth is ostracized, terrorized, and brutally massacred. The terrorists and murderers protected, praised and pardoned by the ignorant, the foolish, the bad and the mad. This is not how it should be in a rational, healthy, just and sane society. But in sick samsara we are not free to be our best, and we find no relief or rest from constant craving, grasping, and attachment. And we realize that our lives are futilely spent, repeatedly pursuing without pause chores and activities that our negative karma caused. The only way to escape from this evil insanity and to be completely free from karma's unbreakable chains and samsara's excruciating pains is Amida Buddha's primal vow. So, not tomorrow but now, think and say the Nembutsu with an attitude of great gratitude for Amida's inconceivable salvation and grace, unlimited by time or space. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu. Thank you, Amida Buddha. Homage to Amida Buddha. I take refuge in Amida Buddha. The above verses were inspired by the following passages from the excellent book, The Path of Acceptance, Commentary on Tannisho by Reverend Josho, Adrian, Cirlea. Quote, by saying, I have no idea, he admits his ignorance, and by I am incapable of any other practice, he acknowledges his incapacity to attain birth in the Pure Land and nirvana by self-power practices. His faith has two aspects, profound awareness of his limitations and his evil karma, which can take him only to hell, and his total reliance on the saving power of Amida Buddha. The stored good from the past represents our good karma from past lives and this life, which manifests itself as an opening or receptive state of mind towards the message of the primal vow of Amida Buddha. In Jodo Shinshu, the main practice is called monto, to listen to the teaching. A lot of people hear the teaching about the primal vow, but few are opened to it. This openness is very important in our tradition, and is the manifestation of the good stored from the past. Also, if you listen again and again to the teaching in this life, thus becoming immersed with all your being in the Dharma, this listening will become a stored good, which will make you open to the call of the primal vow. A Jodo Shinshu teacher must be fully concentrated on the people who ask him to guide them in their understanding of the teaching, according to the urge of Shinran Shonen. Help others receive shinjin, always using his skills to make them become open to the working of Amida. This is his mission. But if all the members of his dojo or temple decide to leave and go to another teacher, he must let them go and not feel any attachment to them. Acting in this way, he proves that he truly understands the law of karma, according to which we come together when conditions bring us to meet, and part when conditions separate us, and also that he understands the truth that he is only a messenger and a guide, not the giver and the creator of shinjin. Also, if they return to him, he should receive them like they have never gone away, thinking of nothing else but only how to be useful to them. And if he truly acts and preaches in accord with the spontaneous working of the vow, his listeners will see this if they have eyes to see, and will respect him as a good teacher and feel gratitude to him. This is what I understand will awaken to the benevolence of Buddha and of one's teacher. On one occasion, Master Renyo said to Dosho, you can lose written materials, but if you have acquired shinjin in your mind, you will never lose it. Shinjin is often called diamond-like shinjin, because it is given by Amida. This, I think, is the very reason why shinjin cannot be destroyed once acquired, because it is not our creation, but what we receive from Amida. If shinjin was created by us, then it would have the power of human mind, which is changeable and can easily be destroyed. But because it is the shinjin of merit transference based on Buddha-centered power, that is, Tariki Eko no Shinjin, it has the power of the Buddha's mind, which cannot be destroyed. No evil act can bring about karmic results, nor can any good act equal the Nembutsu. As long as a Nembutsu practitioner is alive, he is influenced by his own karma and will bear its consequences. But this karma is a rootless karma, because if you have received shinjin, your karma will not manifest in another life. Thus I call it a karma without roots, or which has its roots cut by Amida's power. A plant with its roots cut off will continue to live only for a very short time, a metaphor for this present life of a Nembutsu practitioner, but it will wither away and cannot give rise to any fruits or other lives spent in delusion. This is what is meant by no evil act can bring about karmic results. It does not say that you will experience no more sufferings while you are still alive, but that you will not continue to be born in another life as a being drowned in delusion. Your karma, be it evil or good, has no more power to keep you as a prisoner in samsara. Also, your so-called good karma or good actions cannot add something to the Nembutsu of faith. Only by faith in Amida are you born in the Pure Land and escape samsara, not by your own merits or good karma. End quote. Namo Amida Butsu.